Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I was very excited to have a conversation with Youssef today, and I'm very excited to share his experiences with everyone and his journey through the tech world and some of his thoughts on where we're heading as an industry or heading as a species, as a society. Very cool conversation, and felt very grateful to be able to have this time and to be able to share it with everyone. I hope everyone's been enjoying the series. If you have been enjoying the series and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider giving us a like or subscribe down below. And yeah, we'll keep creating some really cool videos for y'all. And I'm very excited, like I said, to share Youssef with all of y'all. And without any further ado, here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to ZDS 079. Super excited. Today we have Youssef Taghlabi with us. Youssef and I are working together on a project at the moment. And yeah, Youssef, I wanted to start out the podcast just by, kind of digging into your story a little bit. That's one of the things I always love talking about when I have people on the show, is like figuring out the path they took to get to where they're at. So
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be part of this podcast. Thank you for inviting me, Zach. I'm really, really honored. A lot to talk about for sure. We've worked together for the last few months, and so much to unwrap. So I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, man. Well, so maybe can we get started with like the beginning? Like, how did you get involved in tech? Like maybe even before first technical job. What sparked you?
Sure. I mean, I came to this country when I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
By myself. I was born and raised in Morocco, in a city called Casablanca. Nothing to do with the movie, it's a city, Casablanca, and I think I got involved in tech just by, like anybody else around my age, by playing games. I remember my first game was Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, you know what I mean, PlayStation, and all that. And I always wanted to create games. That's what my mind was set. It was just amazing. I remember Street Fighter, those 8-bit, 16-bit games. That was just phenomenal.
There's a lot of magic about Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
It remains to this day very extensively played.
It is.
It's very cool. If you look at the more recent iterations they've done with that game too, it's all based on the same mechanics. Like it feels like you're playing that game, just like kind of updated. So
I've played that game so much, it's literally in my DNA. Like, nice. True story, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine invited me over to his house. He had a little get-together, and they were playing PlayStation. Like, they were playing actually Street Fighter 2. They had those old classic games. I did not play that game like in 12 years.
Yeah.
And as soon as I start playing, I literally start beating every single person. Like, those moves, I never forgot them. 12 years. It's literally in my DNA. Nice. That's how much I've played that game. But
can I ask you who your main is?
Me? Oh yeah, Ken. I love Ken.
Ken. Okay. Ken was my favorite too. Actually, my favorite was Blanca, but you find out pretty soon he's pretty bad if you get any kind of good at the game.
He's kind of slow. He's a little bit slow. Like, they did not do him good justice there.
Yeah. Well, any charge character, I'm just terrible at too.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I love playing with Ken and Rio. Those are all my favorite players. What's his name? Saga? Was that the Thai guy? Yeah, Saga, right? Yeah, I love playing with him. Yeah, because it's the same exact combo, the same exact moves. That was fun, man. That was a lot of fun. Like, I can play that game forever. I will never get tired of it. Yeah. And that was my goal, is just to create games like this. So and I was maybe like 7, 8 years old. And I remember my dad, he bought me and my siblings a Dell computer when I was about 13, 14 years old. And he put me in charge of it. That was amazing. Like, giving you that power in your household is like, hey, Youssef, you are in charge of this. Because he saw how interested I was in computers. And he put me in charge with it. At that time, we didn't even have internet. So I used to go borrow books from the library, coding books. And I used to try, build something, compile. I didn't even know what I was doing. Yeah. But once I finished high school, when I turned 19 years old, I came to the US to study computer science.
Okay.
That was my main goal. So I went to college, studying computer science. And what's funny, while studying computer science in college, my first job actually was not in the tech business. I was a dishwasher. That was my first job. And I loved it because as a new immigrant coming to the US, I was just excited by the culture, by the people. It was phenomenal. So I was actually making some money and paying my way through college. So I did not really have any student loans, which was fantastic.
Wow.
And at the time, yeah, it was
That's
good.
crazy.
Like for me, I thought that was the norm. I didn't know any better, you know. I thought everybody is doing it like this, but later on, I've found out that people actually have student loans. I was like, wow, okay, that's an interesting concept.
Oh, we've got a little bit of student loans. Let me tell you.
That was a new concept to me because education is free.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a new concept to me, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, you have a lot of student debts. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I was lucky enough that when I was a junior in college, my good friend of mine, Hisham Al-Hamoushi, he's working with us currently too.
Oh, wow. You go way back. I had no idea.
Yeah. Hisham was actually my first friend in the US.
Wow.
Like, literally. So I've known that guy for like 21 years now. Like 21 years. And we've been college buddies, and we actually worked in 6 different companies together. So we go way, way back. And he used to work for a company called Gannett at that time.
Okay.
And he introduced me to the manager. I interviewed and I got in. I was really excited, like my junior year in college. But the funny thing is that the job had nothing to do with being a developer, was a system admin.
Okay.
So the job consisted of monitoring some Unix and Linux boxes, and sometimes we do some maintenance on those boxes. And it was a great work shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I did not care. I was like, fine, I'll take this job.
Yeah.
And I was young. I was maybe like 21, 22 years old. And I used to take work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and go to classes in the morning from 8 a.m. until noon and go crash in the afternoon. And I did that for about a year until I earned my wings, so to speak, in Gannett. Yeah. And then I moved from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. doing system analyst. System analyst consists of a support job where you pretty much talk to different customers, Gannett customers. But those customers, actually, they were technical people. They were newspapers around the nation. Gannett at that time had about 90 newspapers and a handful of media stations in the US and in Guam. So we had to work around the clock, right? We had 3 shifts. And the job consisted of talking to engineers on those newspapers and see how you can support them, because we used to build applications for them. So my job was to take the bug or enhancement request, create a ticket for it, and then give it to the developers. So I was the middleman. A year later, once I graduated, I had my computer science degree, and I finally became a developer. And I was super excited. I remember that. It was like from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now I am a developer. I did as system admin, I did system analyst. I did some DevOps as well in between. And then I finally ended as an engineer. And it was, man, like I can't tell you how happy I was. Yeah. I've learned a lot. We had an excellent team. We had an A team. We used to be 5 people. And those 5 people, 5 engineers, used to actually create applications for all of Gannett newspapers around the US. Only 5 engineers. We used to use a CMS at that time called, I think, Placket, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall. And on top of that CMS, we built an application using regular HTML, JavaScript, and jQuery. Those were the 2006, 2007 days where jQuery was a hit, if you remember. Yeah. You know, now it's Angular or React. At the time, it was jQuery or Prototype.js, if you remember that. And we used to support.
So I came into front-end development, like I got into front-end development with Angular 2 when Angular 2 came out. So I'm like, I'm very interested in a lot of the JavaScript history. I've gone into jQuery pretty extensively just through other projects I've come across over the years. But
Yeah,
it's always interesting to hear like the history, especially from someone like you who's been working in like front end space for since
it's been
2006.
it's been a journey. It's been a
That's a
journey.
wealth
Because
of
at the
knowledge.
time, yeah, because at the time we used to support Internet Explorer 6.
Yeah.
You know, like we literally just moved away from Internet Explorer 5.
Yeah.
And we had to move to support 6 plus. Imagine
Mm-hmm.
the time it takes to have a front end functionality support Firefox, Chrome, and
Yeah.
Internet Explorer at that time.
Yeah.
And there was no Firebug. There was no like a developer tool, like a solid developer tool in Internet Explorer you can use. We literally there was something called Firebug Lite.
Mm-hmm.
It's an add-on where you can install in Internet Explorer just so you can have a decent developer tool at that time.
Right.
So something as easy as, I don't know, like creating a simple page used to take days to make sure it looks the same cross browser. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting, but I learned a lot. I remember I met this guy called William Alexander, and I was fascinated by that person. Like, he was an architect, and the way how he was thinking was just unbelievable. I looked up to him then. I still look up to him until now. He's one of those, you meet some people in your life and they just make this huge impact on you. Mm-hmm. This lasting impact. And he was definitely one of them. I remember one day I just went to him. I was like, dude, how do you think the way you think?
Yeah.
Like, what books did you read? And this guy was not. I think he did some college, but he was self-taught engineer.
Yeah.
And he gave me some books to read. He gave me some algorithm and data structure books to brush up on. I think he gave me also a book for JavaScript performance, on how does the browser actually compiles JavaScript and renders the page, so you can fully understand in a granular level what happens line by line, like when a page actually loads. That guy really was able to make Gannett pages load faster than Google homepage. That's how good that guy was.
That's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Super impressive.
Yeah, I've learned so much from him. Yeah.
The president at my first job, it sounds very, very similar. I felt like I had the same kind of the same way you're describing William Alexander is the same way I think of him. But like talking to him, I felt like I think he was just like extremely talented in terms of like I think of myself in some ways I'm like mentally juggling these balls as I'm like going through a problem. If I get to like 4 balls, I'm just like, okay, I gotta start like writing notes or figuring this out because my brain's losing it. I felt like his superpower was like he would easily juggle 12 balls in his head, like keeping track perfectly, managing all of them. And I don't know, I don't have the discipline, or I don't think that's something you can get particularly better at. In fact, I think over time the human body just gets worse at that. So
no, I'm like you, man. I need to take notes. I need to take notes on a daily basis, like as I'm talking to people. Otherwise, I have a really short-term memory. Like, my wife always, my friends too. Like, if somebody says hi and give me their name or his or her name, 10 minutes later that name is gone. Like,
you got to write that thing to disk. It's not going to stay in the RAM.
I have to. Like, I'm just like you. I need to write stuff down.
Yeah.
And that was the start of my journey in front-end engineering. And when I left Gannett in 2010, and I landed a job at Concur. Concur is a travel and expense management system.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, they had an office in Old Town, Alexandria, in Virginia, and I met really solid architects there. Michael Lohr, Andrew Santos, those were phenomenal architects that I'm still in touch with now. They're really good friends of mine. I ended the job there, and I started implementing all the architecture I have learned at Gannett in front-end engineering for Concur, for JavaScript. I did that for a while. SAP acquired Concur, I think in 2014, 2015. And myself and 3 other engineers, we left to a startup called Get It. Get It, they're very similar to, they have pretty much job announcements, similar to, I would say LinkedIn, but something similar to that.
I'm
And
trying to think. I've heard of all these like job posting boards kind of thing. Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. And there is so much traffic that goes to the sites. So much traffic. They were very lucrative in terms of Google ads of advertising. They were making good money in terms of that.
So what year are we at, right? When you
2000 now we're at 2015 right now.
Okay. So we're past the bubble at this point. I was curious if you felt that in your
2008.
Yeah. So that's like right when you're getting in the job market, right?
Yes.
Or not too long afterwards.
Exactly. There was in 2008, 2009. Okay. And Gannett, like any other company, was hit pretty hard. Yeah. And they had to furlough a lot of people. Right. So I remember, I think the impact that I felt was that we had to take 1 week off, mandatory 1 week off every month for 4 months. So every month you were getting paid for 3 weeks rather than 4 weeks. And you were
would they cycle engineers so that
yes.
Or did they just that would be like a weird model to like everyone's caught the same week.
We closed. But the thing is that we will take the week off, but once you come back, there is so much work waiting for you that pretty much what it was, you worked 4 weeks in 3 weeks. That's what it was. And I remember even some days we were in office on weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, just to finish some project. That's how crazy it was. I was young at the time. I was in my early mid-20s, so I could do it with no problem. I didn't have I was single, no family, and it was good. I was eager to do that too because I had an appetite to learn. I just wanted to learn. So that was 2008. That was interesting.
Going back to like my first experience too, the same one as the president I was talking to you about. There was some buzz about that place, especially when I first started. That was like there was like an energy there, and we were just like getting stuff done, and like we had the weekends and stuff like that too. We didn't have the 1 week off a month thing, but we did have like, well, you gotta get this done. There's only so much time. Let's just figure out some way, like stay up all night or do something.
Even at Concur, at Concur, when I joined Concur, we had engineers doing that, but out of passion.
Yeah,
it's not because we had a specific deadline to reach, but the smaller group of people that I was part of, they were just so passionate about technology. And my manager at the time, Andrew Santos, what was fascinating about him, he was a director level, and he was coding as much as I was. And it was just fascinating to me. I have a lot of respect for that guy, to have somebody who not only manages people, but actually does a lot of coding. And that's interacting with this guy, Andrew Santos, Mike Lohr, they were really examples for me, an inspiration to people managers. Like when I start working with them, I always thought to myself, where if I'm ever going to be a people manager, I want to be somebody like that. They really, there are some cutthroat managers, as you know, but their style of management is, they're treating people like your buddies, like your friend. You know what I mean? There is really no wall, and that was good. That was really good. It was really a healthy way of managing people, and I always liked it. And the whole team was very, very productive. In 2015, Concur got sold to SAP for about $8 billion.
Wow.
That was SAP's biggest acquisition. That was impressive. That was really, really impressive. Once that happened, we decided to leave. So me and 3 other managers left Concur. We joined this company called Get It in 2015. 2015, 2016. And there was a startup. Like any startup, we're putting about 10, 12 hours a day, easy. And I remember we were in this guy rented a lawyer's office. So the 4 of us would be in this really small room, and we would be coding the entire day. We had multiple deployments a day. I think every day it's easy. We'll have like 10 or 12 deployments, like talking about canary releases. We did canary releases in 2015. And that was impressive, like to work on that environment, like really high speed environments. And we were doing everything. We were doing front end engineering, back end using PHP. We were using AWS. You go spin off EC2s, S3s, use implement load balancer, VPC, you name it. And there was like each person was literally a one-man army, and we were just crushing it. Unfortunately, within a year, it did not work out. So we left that startup and we joined another startup called Pause Global. Pause Global, their goal was to create a travel system, but for pets. So, for example, if you want to book, travel, for your pet, you can actually. There is a niche market there.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah, because now if each U.S. Travel company, flight company has its own rules when it comes to pets. And even if you want to travel, each county, state, city has its own rules. And even if you go, for example, to Hawaii, each island has its own rules.
Oh, wow.
So the idea was to be like a data aggregator for all those rules and put them under one system. Like this, if anybody would like to book travel for their pets, they can just follow that system and it will guide them through it. We did that, but we did not, unfortunately, launch. I think that we did not have enough funding to do that. And it went, like, we parted ways, I believe, in Q1 of 2016, if I recall.
And 2016, this is where I come into the scene and like Angular 2 drops. So.
Exactly. And I remember actually in 2015, when I was still at Concur, we were moving away from .NET MVC4. We were using .NET MVC4, and our new CTO wanted to use open source.
Okay.
So we were looking into AngularJS at the time, and React, and we chose React because Angular 2 was about to come out.
Yeah.
But it was not backward compatible.
Right.
And we had a really bad experience with backward compatibility. At that time, in Concur, we use EXT.js, if you have ever used it. It's a graphic UI. And Concur is a pretty big application. They had thousands of pages.
Right.
All of them, or most of them, are using EXT.js. I remember that at that time, there was a new major version that came out, but it was not backward compatible. Which means for us, if we wanted to upgrade EXT.js, we had to go migrate thousands of pages.
Yeah.
So
that sounds pretty intimidating.
That's pretty intimidating. So like this, when we decided to go with either AngularJS or React, backward compatibility was a big variable in the decision.
Okay.
Since Angular 2 came out, it was not backward compatible. We had no experience with Angular. We didn't know the team. We really had no built trust in Angular at the time. We decided to go with React because like all their major versions were backward compatible, and their promise is that it will always be. So we decided to go with React, and we started implementing React before I left Concur. But unfortunately, I did not see that project through.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear about like the decision making there. Like, so the backwards compatibility, 100%, like makes complete sense, especially for your situation. I've always been astounded by like, Jeff and Victor were on the team at the time, but like some of the decisions they made, like going wholesale for some technologies like TypeScript, like RxJS, that at the time, like I was just coming on the scene. So it's like, okay, this is cool. This is new. I imagine this is how everything works. But then realizing, oh no, like these are huge departures from like industry standards at the time. And I remember people like, there being a lot of friction over Angular because of some of those decisions, which I always thought were really cool. Like so getting started in TypeScript rather than JavaScript is very hard for me to go back. Like I do because I have to, and sometimes, but it's like, how did people understand these APIs before TypeScript? It's very, very crazy.
It was for me, like JavaScript is my favorite language. I love TypeScript. I still use it nowadays, but JavaScript was the language I really first started with. You know what I mean? It was like my first toy language, and I really like what it is now, what it's going, and I like what Microsoft did with TypeScript.
Yeah.
I really like it. But even now, like if I have to interview people and hire people, I really don't ask them any TypeScript questions per se. The entire interview is around JavaScript.
Yeah.
Especially for front-end engineers, because that's, by the end of the day, that's the language that the browser compiles.
Right.
That's the language that the browser understands is JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
It does not understand TypeScript, it understands JavaScript. So you must know JavaScript if you want to be a really good front-end engineer.
Yeah.
And the rest is easy to learn. Like if you have somebody who has a really solid JavaScript base, you can, teach them TypeScript or teach them other JavaScript framework with no problem.
Yeah. Well, I think like my mental model for like understanding TypeScript is I don't even think of it as its own language necessarily. I think I did when I first got started, but like really it's just a typing system on top of JavaScript.
That's it. That's really all that
is. In its best case, right? I think that's what it is.
And like a lot of people, when I first got introduced to TypeScript, for some reason I had a lot of resistance for that language. I was thinking, no, I am a JavaScript engineer. I love JavaScript and sticking with JavaScript. What is this thing called TypeScript you want to put on top of my JavaScript? I remember that very well.
Yeah. Were you using like other, like I know there's similar typing mechanisms or tooling around JavaScript before TypeScript came around. Were you using those already? Okay.
No, I was literally using my JavaScript. And what's funny, even my editor was just Notepad++. Like literally, I had nothing compiling my code. I had literally, that's what it was. It was Notepad++.
Wow.
And I used Notepad++ just for colors.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'd have been in Notepad or Angular.
That's literally what I was using. I was using Notepad.
Yeah.
Before that, I was just using Notepad.
Well, yeah. So getting started with Angular, this kind of like there's a little bit of the separation when I got started, just because I went through the whole tour of Hero, the docs, all that stuff, getting through like the Angular CLI to get you to, they spin up the web server when you serve.
Yeah.
There was a realization when I started digging more into JavaScript as my career continued. I was like, you're telling me I could just update files on my file system and just open them in the browser, and that's all I needed to do? Like there's always this weird magic separating me from my code to the browser, it felt like, until I kind of made that transition. So
it's truly amazing. What I love about JavaScript is that anybody, if you have a browser, you have a JavaScript compiler. As simple as that. You bring up the developer tool, you start writing JavaScript. That's it.
You've got a whole runtime right there. You don't need Node. Like you just open up the terminal. There you go. You can script out whatever you need.
Exactly. Like even for me, when I was using Notepad++, my compiler was the browser. Like if I write in Notepad++ and I copy it over to developer tool in Firefox. At the time, Chrome, I think, just came out when I was with Gannett, and Firefox had a huge chunk of the market. And I remember I used to bring up Firebug and I'll copy paste the code there and I'll compile it.
Okay.
That was my compiler, Yeah. Now, looking at people how they code, man, the thoughts that keep going through my mind is, you guys are so spoiled. You have no idea what you have. You have
absolutely.
Like VS Code, are you kidding me? Like all the tools that VS Code is fantastic. Like all the typing it gives you and all the add-ons it has is just phenomenal. I remember
Lens changed my life when I really got into that tool. It was
my God,
okay, now I'm stepping back and forth through time like a time lord. I don't know if you watched Doctor Who, but
I did. I did.
Stepping through time. Okay, there you go.
Cool. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Like looking how spoiled engineers are now, and some people sometimes people complain about those editors or they complain about the language. In my head, I was like, you should have tried to code 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And trust me, now I don't complain about anything. I'm very, very happy with what I have. VS Code is fantastic. TypeScript is great. Angular even better. Like I'm not complaining at all because they make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Those tools. If you think of in terms of how many billions of hours, right, globally, with the how many billions of hours are lost daily back in the day to make a simple functionality work cross-browser, it's crazy. because at the time there was the browser war, right? You had IE versus Chrome versus Firefox. They were all trying to get a piece of the market, but they really did not care about engineers. Each one of them had their own rendering engine, right? Until lately, they said, well, that's not really good for anybody. Let's try to get those standards together to make it easier for engineers when they code a piece of code, it will work across browser,
Right.
And we get in there. Like right now, if you look at the API in our browser, it's literally the same. I remember back in the days, if you try to, create an HTTP request, the code you will write in IE is completely different than the code you write in Firefox.
Right.
Because the APIs are completely different.
Yep.
So yeah, I remember that. But now it's you have Angular, you have frameworks like Angular, React. They said, hey, don't worry about it. We'll take care of that for you. It is how you make a request. It is how you API request, how you get the response, and so on and so forth. So nowadays it's a lot easier to code for sure than what it was 10 years ago, as it should be. Technology is always improving. So, and I can't wait. This was just 10 years. I can't wait in 10 years from now. What are we gonna have?
Yeah. I remember thinking what a pain it was when I was. This will get into the spoiled part, right? Where, this must have been like 2016, maybe early 2017. I had pumped out like this front end application that we needed to get to one of our clients, and it was like, okay, they have to use IE11 because of some of their proprietary tools, and I was like, it's not working. It was just like, okay, check all the polyfills are there. Yep, they're there. So what's going on? It was just like some very minor difference in how the IE11 JavaScript engine worked versus the Chrome one, and I was just like, oh man, I gotta refactor all my code to make it work.
And if you have the government, if you have the U.S. government as a consumer, you're stuck. Because you need to support whatever Internet Explorer version they have. At the time, Internet Explorer was the government browser. Bill Gates did a really good job to sell Microsoft to the U.S. government. And I remember back in the days, even at Concur, we had most of the U.S. branches as a consumer, and we had to support IE 6, 7, 8, all those all legacy Internet Explorer browsers, and it was a pain. And on top of that, if you have the U.S. government as a consumer, or without it even now, you must make your application accessible. And with the U.S. governments, they have this section called 508. Which means pretty much dictates that any U.S. government's application must be accessible. And I remember that my third year at Concur, I was tasked pretty much to make all of travel accessible, all of the entire travel application accessible, and that was a nightmare because even the accessibility tools such as JAWS, VoiceOver, they were still in their infancy. And I had to fully understand how JAWS buffer, as an example, works, so I can refresh it every time. And I have to make all that accessible in IE 6 or 7, and that was just
goodness.
That was crazy. I remember I spent an entire year of my life doing just accessibility in JavaScript. In all the browsers. That was an interesting challenge.
So this is interesting because this came up on my conversation with Ken C. Dodds a while back now. But I've thought for a while like we're doing accessibility wrong a little bit. The way I'd like to build a lot of our applications is like you have these areas of concern. Like it would be great, like kind of like what you're saying, to have someone, or like unfortunately the position you are in, but someone in charge of accessibility, and they have their own section, their own system they develop, and then doesn't matter what else comes into that system. That system is built to work all things around it. Feels like the way we're trying to fix accessibility is it's unavoidably distributed throughout your entire application. Every engineer creating any kind of UI needs to know, okay, these are the accessibility concerns, and Like the only other way you have of it. So someone like you, if you're in the position you were describing, it's like, well, I got to go through and audit the whole app and just figure out different places. And then to fix these, I actually got to like, create changes rippling throughout the code to make this work. And it's just, I don't know. I 100% accessibility is a huge concern. We need to do better at it. And I think we're just failing at it, just in part because of the cumbersome system we've built around it. So.
It's true. Even the government 508 section,
it
really does not make application accessible, because the rules that you have to implement, they're not enough to make an entire application accessible. But sadly, a lot of people who have contracts with the U.S. governments, they will actually just implement 508s and they say, "Yep, we are accessible," just so they can keep moving. But unfortunately, 508s has been outdated, and it definitely needs to be reviewed. Again, even like I saw a lot of other sites that got sued because they're not accessible. Like a lot of them, a lot of colleges sites, like Ivy League schools, their website got sued because they were not accessible. And I think like we should keep going this way, and so we make sure that everything we have is accessible. And as a manager, I do every time or whatever I work, whatever piece of code that my team is responsible for, we make sure that it is 100% accessible. And I'm lucky that the organization I work with right now, we have an entire department for accessibility. Where every time we have a PR open that touches some piece of UI, we send them their way so they can vet it, make sure it's accessible. So I'm glad it's getting better and better.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some of your ability to function well in there came from that year of doing nothing but those concerns, right?
So. It did. Like for an entire year, like this is just like how Street Fighter is part of my DNA. Like I have accessibility part of my DNA, because that's what I've done for an entire year of my life. Like literally no feature development, nothing. It's just going through the entire application and make it accessible. So I had to do a lot of learning. And what's tricky is that to support legacy browsers, all the browsers, you really must know your stuff. Like you must know your stuff, because there are a lot of edge cases you have to cover. You have to understand how Internet Explorer worked, how it refreshes the DOM, and all those little tricks. And it just got me better at understanding how browser work in general. And that's why I stayed with front-end engineering, because it's amazing how it's an entire universe. Front-end engineering is a whole universe. Sadly, back in the days, back-end engineers used to call front-end engineering toy job. They used to call JavaScript a toy language. Because you had no typing, you had no classes. It was not an object-oriented language like C++ or like Java, as an example, right?
I beg to differ about that. It's not like classically object-oriented, but I think from the beginning it was like it has its own flavor of it that I think was actually. It works a little bit better, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and I liked it. But now, like when they look at it, like they see how it has evolved. Oh my God, it's an entire universe. If you want to be a front-end engineer these days, it's like if you want to get in, it's easy to get in. But to be an expert, it takes years. Because you really must master browsers, how they function, the language, how it compiles. There are a lot of tools we use right now, like Webpack, right? Angular CLI, React, even like in a regular tech stack for Angular, the number of tools that are used there. You have Angular CLI, NX, TypeScript, right? Use observables, use RxJS.
My favorite, right there.
Right?
It's a lot to ask of someone to be able to just contribute.
So. It's a lot. NGRX is like NGRX2. With the current organization I'm working with, we had to migrate, from AngularJS to Angular. As you know, we helped with a lot of that. And I remember the question I was asked is, okay, we're gonna migrate, but what is the new tech stack? We have hundreds of engineers. What do they need to learn? As I was putting that list together, I took a step back. It's like, oh my God, it's a lot. Like I did not realize how much it was. Right? Angular CLI, NX, TypeScript, RxJS, NGRX,
Yeah.
Webpack, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in my, starting in 2016, I felt like it was significantly easier to get in because like there's a lot of those things you mentioned in that stack weren't required. Like the first app I put into production, I took a crash course on Angular. I got something up there. Like thankfully it wasn't like this was an internal tool, so it was like open to the public, so it didn't have as much pressure on it maybe. But it was like, okay, I did that, and then I was like, okay, how can I improve this going forward? And that's where the other tools started to come on.
Yeah.
But I guess just the nature of the beast, kind of the scale of the application we're working on. It's like, well, we need these things, and we need like, I don't know. We could get into a whole thing here, and maybe this is a good transition into that. It's like, how do you manage that work? Like managing the people, and you mentioned this a little bit, but understanding like technical skills, technical competencies, and like other people who have like matching skills or complementary skills, so they can work together. That's something I've been very, very intrigued by, especially like thinking about work recently.
Yeah, so. even now, when like personally want to hire someone, I have zero expectations from them for the first 6 to 8 weeks. Like, because I know the first 6 to 8 weeks is going to be just learning, because there is so much to learn, especially if they don't come from the same tech stack we're using.
Right.
For example, they used to be in the tech stack we currently use. We use an Angular tech stack, as you know. If they come from a React tech stack, it might take them a little while, to get adjusted to things, because there is not only that barriers to entry consist of learning the framework, but also learning the entire repo where you're going to be coding, because it's structured a different way. It has its own standards and so on and so forth. But luckily these days, we have so many tools that can guide the engineer in coding the right way, right? We have NX for PRs. We have code owners. We have Gateway, I believe. Not Gateway, I'm sorry, Gates and code owners. We have linching rules. You have pre-commit hooks that you can actually hook linching rules to them to make sure they're not going to commit something that is not up to the standards. So there is this hand-holding you can do with the engineer to guide them into coding the right way.
And mainly automated hand-holding too. Like, exactly. This isn't someone that has to stand with them and explain. Maybe there's some of that needs to go on, but with the way they're set up, I think in the project we're working on too, it's like especially like when I was dropped in, I was like, oh, this is really nice. Like I don't have to talk to anyone. I just here's what's wrong with your PR. It's like all that information is available. It's very clear. Like this is the procedure. So
everything is automated these days, and we don't even have AI part of it yet. Imagine once we have AI baked into all of that, like what we can achieve, and it's been phenomenal. Certain things that made this a lot easier too is TypeScript EST, abstract syntax tree. It's a powerful tool. You can do so much with it. It's unbelievable. Before that, it was regular expressions. And regular expressions they are so slow.
Well, Youssef, I subscribe to the idea that if you have a problem and you use regex to solve it, now you've got two problems.
Exactly. I agree. Before that,
I'm partial to just like standard string manipulation myself. Like I only reach for regex if I really need it.
Imagine the time complexity if you want to think about big O.
Oh yeah.
For example, for a regular expression, and imagine you put that code in the front end, right? Where like that code now is going to compile a piece of UI for the user. That was going to take forever. Forever in our world is maybe more than a second. That's forever, when you try to load the page. Because in our world, we deal with milliseconds, right? Like forever is like 1 second, 2 seconds. You start having users getting super frustrated. They will go away.
Well, you're getting into something really interesting to me, which I think, like, I wish we thought about Big O and stuff like this a little bit more often in front end. I feel like performance is very much focused on like those things like first page, first interactive and just those metrics. And that's a lot of that is just getting down. It's focused on like these framework level things which may be a good thing. Like just let your framework worry about these things, about the bundling and smaller sizes. But there's something about just like good software practices where it's like, don't iterate. Don't just keep iterating through that list to find the thing. You make the hash map and then use the constant time selection. The
big O and square and cube.
Yeah, n log n, and polynomial, NP hard, all that stuff. Like these are things I learned in college. I honestly I think about them, but I never talk about them in a professional setting.
That's the crazy part to me is that. I've been in this business for more than a decade. And I promise you, for every single enterprise I've worked at, I have never seen a single comment in a PR that talks about space complexity or time complexity.
Oh, forget about space complexity, man. Time complexity is enough. Yeah.
What happens is that every single piece of code, when I take a look at it, I was like, you can enhance it so much. Like every single PR takes a big hit on time complexity. You will see like piece of code where time complexity of n factorial or in cube. Whereas if you look at space complexity, is a linear, like O of 1. Like you're not storing literally anything. And space is cheap these days.
Yeah.
You have local storage, you have manifest, you have you name it. Like a browser caching is fantastic these days.
Yeah.
And I think that's to get close to make your application better these days. You really have to allocate some of that time complexity to space complexity, because most of the time our space complexity is linear. And if it was for me, I would maybe have an entire team dedicated in our organization that focuses just on that.
Yeah.
If you make sure that the code that you write is optimized, for when you look at it from a big O perspective, your application is going to be stupid fast. Yeah. It's going to be you automatically affect the user experience. Currently, when our organization, we have migrated from AngularJS to Angular. It's a whole lot faster. It's better user experience, but there is definitely some room for improvements. And I wish that we have time for that.
Yeah.
It's different when you work for a big enterprise. In a big enterprise, you have 4 players. You have product, engineering, design, and delivery. If you go to your product partner or your design partner, say, hey, you know what? I'm going to spend some of my time to optimize the code. It's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah.
Because product, you think about features. I need to ship features, because if you go tell them, hey, I'm not going to ship anything, I'm just going to go optimize the code. The first thing you're going to think about is, okay, what am I going to do as a product guy? I'm going to sit around waiting for you guys to optimize the code. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dance with those 4 partners. It's an interesting way of working. You need to find a good balance to keep application healthy, to keep everybody moving forward, making progress. Sometimes you got to take a hit,
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I often worry about, though, you can blow this problem up bigger and look at our entire society, but there is a lot, I think, happening in our work where it's like we're optimizing for what we can deliver next week, right? Exactly. Instead of velocity, over time. And I don't think maybe we have some metrics around that. If you think about we could always look at how many commits we're making and how many features we're accomplishing over time, but I think a lot of those things are very nebulous to actually properly track. And those are the kinds of things I think if I had a business person, I'd want them to be thinking about that overall velocity, not what's happening that next week, but down to the industry level. That's just impractical. It seems most people don't stay around at a company long enough to realize the benefits of that velocity or the optimizations we're talking about. So
I completely agree. And also, if you go from one company to the other, you have some companies they are run by engineers.
Yes.
But there are some companies that are run by products.
Mhm.
And
You've seen both of these now.
I've seen both of these. I've seen
Yeah.
the companies are run by engineers.
Mhm.
They're more innovative. They move faster.
Mhm.
They move really, really faster because they move really fast because those engineers they can actually shield themselves from all those product decisions,
Yeah.
and they say, hey, we're gonna block some of our capacity just to focus on platform and focus on performance. I've seen like when you have companies are run by engineers, such as the big guys like Facebook and Google, right? They have amazing products.
Mhm.
On the other side, if you have companies that are run by products,
Mhm.
right? Engineers are literally just implementers of product decisions. It's very, very hard to find time to innovate or to try to sell the innovation idea. As an example, with our organization, we wanted to migrate to Angular. I think we spent a good year and a half just talking about migration. Like just trying to sell it.
Just discussing it. Yeah.
Just discussing it, just to sell the idea and get an agreement from product that it's the right thing to do.
Right.
It took a long time.
Yeah.
And it took.
Well, so you have a ticking clock on that too, on that decision, because
exactly.
AngularJS, I believe their official support ended.
Yep.
I don't know. You probably know that date better than me.
Yeah, it did. That's why we had no other choice but to migrate. But I think if AngularJS did not have, if it had like a longer LTS, I'm not sure we're gonna have a migration. We will migrate to Angular because there will be no reason to migrate to Angular from the product side.
Yeah.
They say, well,
from our perspective, that's like, yes, this could like, well, beyond velocity, it's also like talent pools. So talent pools, especially when you're in LTS, that talent pool is shrinking, and demand is going up. That means if you do find the right person, they're going to be likely going to be charging more too.
They're going to be charging more. You're not going to find talents like to attract talents to the company you work for.
Yeah,
it's going to be nearly impossible. To do that. And I was working in a company where we used to use prototype JS and basic, like classic old school basic. You cannot and it was like 2011, 2012. Imagine putting a job puts pretty much a job request for a position that has prototype JS and Visual Basic.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna get somebody, out of retirement to come back and code.
Yeah, and that's a really hard sell for good talent coming out of college as well. Bless you.
Sorry, allergies.
You're
allergy season.
Thanks for shouldering through this, Youssef. I didn't want to bring attention to it, but you've been a trooper.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my allergy season, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how you will have an application that's bringing in that got sold for $80 billion, right? I'm sorry, $8 billion. And
80 is a lot.
a lot. $8 billion, and it's built on top of prototype JS and Visual Basic. It's crazy.
In a certain way, it's like, who cares at the end of the day what's behind it? And I think that's a product perspective, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly. Like, from a business perspective, is who cares? We have an application. It has millions of users. We can sell it for billions of dollars. Yeah. But for us engineers who are in that space on a daily basis, we know how there is big room for improvements. We can make things better and faster. And imagine if we do that. Imagine if we make that application faster. If it was sold for $8 billion as an example, how much more you can sell it for? If you spend more time enhancing it, But unfortunately, I don't think that's from the business side that they will think that way per se. And I think there is some. They will agree with engineers time to time, but it's a hard sell to go into them. Well, we need some more time to improve code, make things a bit faster. And I've seen this in companies that are run by products and not by engineers.
Yeah. Yeah, from my perspective, it always seems like what the industry needs is maybe more former engineers who are now in that product role.
Yeah,
I always thought that would be like that. That always seemed like the obvious solution, where they understand the world extremely well, intimately well. Maybe
yeah,
hopefully even spend time in the code base their product managing, or they're responsible for. But having their primary concern be like the business aspect of it, like how much are we taking in, but hopefully able to provide that like that perspective over time. Like
yeah.
this is what we're doing to our engineering efforts by making the by not upgrading or something like that.
In my experience, the best product owners that I met, they were
Hmm.
previous engineers.
Yeah.
It makes the conversation so smooth.
Hmm.
Like if you try to go and get their approval on a specific project,
Yeah.
it's they get it. Like there is no trying to sell it to them,
Hmm.
And I've really worked with a lot of product owners who had the engineering background. They just get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if you have a product owner with no technical background, you have to spend a lot of time explaining, which is fine.
Hmm.
Explaining, get their buy-in. It's just eats a lot of time, a lot of your
Yeah.
time.
Have
So it's
you
always good to know your audience.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you 100%. Have you ever seen there was like this HBO special out a bit ago about Chernobyl? Have you happened to see that?
No, not yet, not yet. I
Okay.
have
All
not
right.
seen
It
it yet.
it was very interesting because it was like there's a nuclear physicist, a nuclear engineer, and like
Yeah,
so they have all this technical knowledge,
yeah,
and it's Russia, so there's like a I don't know what you call it, like an oligarch, some politician, someone high up in the
yeah,
party who is in charge of like handling this problem,
yeah,
and seeing them interface, like where the business person obviously like knows nothing about this very complex technical
yeah,
thing. Like I don't know, I consider myself an engineer. Like I would have no idea. But so let's see, and like how do we confer enough and accurate enough information to this guy quick to like get him set up so he can make like the important decisions he's going to have to make in the
yeah.
next days. Like I felt a lot of like seeing watching that special. I was like, this is a lot of what I've done in the past. Like trying
Yeah,
to make those do that communication.
that is
So
very true. Like we spend a long time. Yeah, it's very hard to take technical data
mm,
and translate it into product data, so you can give it to someone to make a product decision. It's I won't say it's very hard, but it's very subjective because you have to understand, like, know that product person, like what he's looking for. There are different unit of measurements you can use. It's just sometimes it's tricky. Again, it's you have to know your audience
mm,
and how they like things, and how to like data presented to them. And if I'm facing this, I've faced this before. I'm still facing it now, and I'm sure I'm going to face it in the future.
yeah,
But it's fascinating in the tech world how each company you will have different, I call them dance partners, right? Like with my current organization, we
yeah,
have product design and delivery and delivery lead and engineers, and you have to be in sync. You have to be in sync to make good progress, to keep things moving. Whereas in startups, you don't have products, you don't have delivery. You might have designers. You just have engineers and designers.
yeah,
And you're moving fast, like you're building stuff and shipping it, building stuff and shipping it.
mm,
Um, but it's just different. It's just a
yeah.
different way of doing things on both ends.
I think one of the bigger concerns about having like engineers running the ship is, yeah, we're moving really fast, but are we moving in the right direction?
Yeah, it's true.
I think product can be very valuable at that, but I
Yeah,
think I think like we were talking about, like the marriage of the two seems to produce
yeah.
the best results from what I've
Yeah.
seen.
Oh, definitely. Like I'm 100% agree that product should be part of the journey. Like there is
Mm,
absolutely no doubt about that,
yeah.
because you need to have somebody to steer the ship eventually.
Yeah.
Uh,
Even to the point where that product is spending, I don't know, 4 hours, 8 hours a week on development itself. I think that could be huge to understanding. Well, why is this feature taking this long to create?
yeah,
It's because, there's some friction here in the development experience. Let's see if we can unblock that. Just to
yeah,
make sure their 8 hours or their 4 hours are productive. Like
yeah.
that I don't know. That seems like interesting innovation you could make. But
for me, like engineers, they always have to learn to speak product language.
Yes.
Right? To talk about, epics, dev per sprints, OKRs, KPIs, like you name them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it would be nice if product learns to speak engineering as well. Take some coding classes, like nothing crazy, just some basic coding classes.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they do that, they will have to understand the amount of work, right, that engineering goes through, like on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would really like to beyond that. I think that's a good idea, but I have seen that a couple times where you've seen like the the product who's taken one class and like, oh, this is easy. Like it could be like deceptively simple, especially if you're taking a course like, oh yeah, I get this. Like I want to see like some actual boots on the ground kind of like a little bit of responsibility on that side of the thing too, so they can really understand. I don't know.
It's a lot. Or maybe pick up, give them one story point in a sprint and let them do something.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
How much work that takes. But I think that what I'm trying to say is that we have a sense of what products is about, what they look for. But it would be nice if products do that as well. Like designers, they speak products. Engineers, they speak products. Delivery, they speak products. But product necessarily does not speak engineering. They can speak design, they can speak delivery, but they don't speak engineering per se, because they have a perception. They have a perception of what engineer faces from day to day, but that's not really the reality. And sometimes it's very, very hard to get a buy-in from somebody who's making a decision about the application, get their buy-in without showing them a demo or giving them an example, and that takes a long time. That takes a long, long, long time. And myself, I'm still learning. I'm still going through it. I'm still learning how to communicate better, especially with my product partners. Try to learn their language, make sure. If there is some data they don't need, I remove it. I give them exactly what they need, just so we can keep making progress. It's I won't say it's challenging. It's just knowing your audience, know who you're talking to and what they're looking for. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like each company is completely different from the other. They do things completely different from the other, and it's just a beautiful journey that all of us go through.
So one thing I wanted to go back to was to just like latch on to what you had mentioned about, your primary passion was video games. Mine was 100% as well. I went to school, just a quick like history on me. Went to school to get a theology degree. I spent some time as a youth pastor. Wasn't for me. It's like started working as like a low level manager at a bank, and I was like, I'm very passionate about video games, and I was like, I want to go do it. Like I'm gonna bite the bullet, go back to school, figure this out. And then I ended up in front end instead, and I love it. And you mentioned sort of this love of JavaScript too. Kind of wanted to see. I was just curious about your journey through that. Like, what was it that like if you were centered on video games, how did you end up where you did, and like where does the love for JavaScript come from? And we can get technical parts on that too if you're up for it.
So in college, I did not have a single class of JavaScript. Not even one. All my 4 years was in C++ or Java.
Yeah.
That was it. Like it was C++ and Java. And for some reason, I did not like either. I did not like C++. I did not like Java. Like as a language, I just didn't like them. But those are the languages actually you use to build actually some of those games. Right? I just didn't like them. So for me, it was like, well, I have to use those languages that I really have no passion for to build games. Maybe I should rethink my decision.
Okay. So it was very technical for you.
It was very, very technical. But for some reason, when I started interacting with JavaScript, it became like it was so organic and so easy, like to learn. The barriers of entry to compile a piece of code, you don't need anything. You know, you just need a browser and you're done. And now you can actually create games with JavaScript. It's powerful. You can create games with that, and I've done some of it like as a hobby, like a few years ago, just on my own time. So I can achieve.
Do you have any games that are out there? I can put like.
I never deployed. This is an old machine. I have it's an old machine I have upstairs. I was just playing around with it. I never deployed it anywhere. But I was interested in doing 3D with JavaScript. That was a couple of years ago when between the second startup and a financial company I worked for, between that time I had a few months where I could actually go and do stuff I wanted to do, and that was one of them. And it was fun. It was so much fun, but also part of maturing. Like, as you know, I became a father, a husband. Like creating games for some reason does not appeal to me like it used to back in the days. I still love games. I have PlayStation. I have tons of games. I still have Street Fighter upstairs. You know? Mortal Kombat. You know, God of War. I have all of those. I love gaming. But for some reason, to go create games is no longer appealing to me. But I found a new passion where I love to go and solve problems. I love to solve problems, and it doesn't matter the industry. Like now I am on the financial industry. I'm solving financial problems, and I'm loving it. Like I see the impact on a day-to-day basis. I've solved when I worked for Gannett, I solved actually media. It's a media company. We solved a different set of problems there. Over there, it was all about consumer retention and performance. You know, like every split millisecond counts when it comes to loading the page. So we have to take as many shortcuts as possible to make the page load as fast as possible. At Concur, it was a different set of problems, completely different than Gannett, and startups too. So I just love jumping in an enterprise and looking for problems. You know, that's how the human brain is wired anyways. Human brain is wired to finding problems, like literally, and solve them. That's what my passion now is. Like, and I'm lucky enough to have worked with talented engineers that, you know, I really look up to. I worked with you. I worked with Brandon Roberts, with Jeff Cross, with Victor. You know, Victor Safkin, with all those guys, and it's just I feel really lucky. Every day I tell my wife, well, I did not cross the Atlantic for nothing. You know, coming from Morocco to the US.
That is such a cool way to sum it up, man.
Seriously, like every day, like I have zero regrets because I left literally everything. My entire family is in Morocco, except for my wife, who I met like a few years ago, but every day I'm like, I get to solve world problems, and it's just so fascinating. And every day I'm lucky that I get to do that. Yeah, it's just I'm very lucky to get to do that.
That's so cool, and to hear like your kind of immigrant story here too, in like this cool new frontier of tech. That's so cool to hear. You know, I don't know. I'm no history guy, but like it feels in some ways like. It's just it feels like the immigrant fire of this country that's like such a rich part of our heritage. It's just like the fire has been extinguishing a little bit, it seems like, over the course of history. It's very encouraging to hear your story and how like tech could maybe rekindle some of that a little bit.
I think the fire is always there, to be honest with you. You know, this country aspires people from all over the world, from all over the globe. It really aspires them. Recently there've been some speed bumps here and there, but people, they still have faith in this country. They still look up to it, and the technology here is just phenomenal. It's mind blowing. I still have friends back home who I talk to almost on a daily basis. We exchange ideas, and what I really like now is that like other parts of the world are becoming innovative too. Like there are some countries in Africa, they are extremely innovative in technology. Nigeria, Morocco, extremely innovative in technology. Some really talented Webpack engineers actually in Nigeria. I was talking to Sean Larkin. I was talking to Sean Larkin, I believe, a couple of years ago, and he was telling me about all these talent pool that exists there, that he he worked with.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Morocco is another country where you have extremely talented engineers, software engineers. They have meetups, they have Angular meetups, you name it. Like everything we have here, they have over there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see. It's really beautiful to see.
That's very cool. Yeah, last week we had the NG workers on the show here, and yeah, it's awesome to see. It's for engineers essentially from across the world who like, and they span like all parts of the globe to where they were joking about like they can legitimately give 24 hours support because they just are distributed that way. But yeah, like for these guys to connect and to see how each one of them is kind of affecting their own communities locally. Santosh especially, Santosh Yadav in India.
Yeah.
Like you said, like these kinds of meetups and putting out this content.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see.
And I see like also startups start emerging in a lot of emerging markets, in a lot of emerging countries, because everything is cheap over there. You know, the cost to do a startup is pretty much close to nothing.
Yeah.
You know? And also the culture plays a big role. Like you have countries, like in a lot of countries in Africa, it's not uncommon to see, as an example, someone in his mid-30s still living with his parents, like married and everything. It's not uncommon. But what I'm trying to say here is that all that overhead that you will have, like having a mortgage, having to pay all those bills, you don't have it. You can spend a long time doing startups over and over and over again until something lands and something really working lands, because you have somebody else who is taking care of that overhead. You know what I mean? Whereas here, like, you know,
that's built-in infrastructure for innovation. I think. Like,
yeah, it is.
That's very cool to see.
It really is.
Yeah. I'd like to see more of that in the U.S. I feel like in a lot of ways we take our talent and we bog them down with, like we mentioned this a little bit, student debt, mortgages, like you're talking about. It's very hard for them to put things aside and go after, like, take a gamble on true innovation.
Exactly. Like a lot of like new graduates, and they unfortunately, because of all the student the student loan debts.
Yeah.
We literally cannot wait to get started just to start paying off student loans. That's it. They no longer think about innovation. They no longer think about taking risks, being an entrepreneur, start your own business. You have an idea that's boiling in your head and you want to give life to, but you cannot, unfortunately, because you don't have time to do it. And imagine if we had free education in this country, and you have now time. Instead of just paying student loans, you can actually work for a little while to save up some money, so you can have the luxury to take about 6 months to a year where you go work on your own idea. Imagine where we will be, if in a world like that, like how many applications, innovation we will have by now,
Yeah.
But I think it's coming. I personally always have faith in this country. It really does not cease to amaze me. And I believe we're making good progress toward the right path.
Yeah. It's cool. I think one of the things we've got to think about is to just figure out how to continue to incentivize that innovation. And I think there's like you were talking about, there is a lot of incentive here that maybe doesn't exist in other places. It's both incentive and opportunity. And it would be really cool to see. I don't know, some more societal change come in to kind of push that even forward.
For sure. I remain hopeful. I have faith in this country, and I really cannot wait. I've been here for 21 years, like I mentioned before. And the change I've seen in technology that I've witnessed firsthand in our domain has been impressive, has been extremely impressive. And I can't wait just for the next 10 years to see what's going to happen. Like, I remember very well in 2005, 2006, I said, well, I don't think there will be anything better than jQuery. I was thinking
Yeah.
that. I was thinking that.
No,
Uh,
I completely
yeah,
get that because I think the same way about like Angular and React. Like he's here
yeah,
about like Svelte is kind of making a little bit of a splash. There's maybe some other things on the periphery, but it's like these things just seem so well established that I can't imagine something else coming in. And of course, that's what everyone in jQuery must have been thinking.
yeah.
Like not
I
even
remember.
that long ago. Like probably like six. Six is
Yeah.
probably too soon.
I remember that. I remember meeting actually John Rizig here in DC. It was like a meetup, and I was so happy like that. I met him, and I spoke for a little while because he was presenting,
Yeah.
and it was exciting. It was really exciting to meet the guy and see how he's thinking. And I always thought that there will be nothing better than jQuery,
Mm.
but look where we are now. We have, there is Coffee.js, Vue.js, React, Angular, all those amazing frameworks.
Yeah. Well,
And
and jQuery is all but irrelevant at this
yeah,
point too.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. It's very, very true. And I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. Maybe in 10 years, we'll no longer have React. We'll no longer have Angular. I don't know. Maybe you won't even need front-end engineers as well. You have enough AI
Could
that
be.
can build whatever you want to build just by a UI drag and drop, that like all those old school tools try to do. Remember those tools? You drag stuff, it generates HTML
Yes.
for you. But it was
I'm very familiar with this.
it was really bad HTML.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have good tools that does that for us.
Yeah.
Where you don't need front-end engineers anymore.
Yeah.
And I already see some startups, they start doing things like this. They really the niche market are people who are not engineers but would love to have a startup without hiring anybody. They can go create an entire application, like a full stack application,
Yeah.
without writing a single line of code. And that's
Have you seen the no code movement at all?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That seems very interesting to me. I can't imagine. In some ways it seems to me like an economic trap. Like no code just doesn't make sense. Someone's writing the code and someone's getting paid, and
Yeah.
it would be cool to see. I'm not aware of any like big success stories, but it will be very cool to see in the coming years if people are able to leverage that to just take like a really good idea and make it happen without the paying the price up front of like years of technical experience or find the right person to do this stuff for you. So
I think it's just that the workforce is gonna shift. From how AI now is replacing all those cashiers as an example, right? Because just redundant tasks. I think eventually maybe front-end engineering, AI might take over it as a whole, but engineers will actually shift to AI. Maybe our whole focus is going to be just to keep building good AI and enhancing it to build whatever we want it to build. To pretty much make it as easy as anybody can build anything they want when it comes to software engineers.
Yeah,
not hiring a software engineer. I think we're gonna get there. I honestly think we're gonna get there.
I hope so. I do think AI is in some ways a magic bullet, and we treat it that way a little too much sometimes. Like so like the interesting example you brought up with the cashiers, like I don't think there's much AI going on in there. It's definitely automation, but it's like it's a robot that kind of can do it, and just with the right systems in place, like that can happen. I think there's definitely a case where like put aside no code, but like what's it called, like Fiverr. Have you heard of this? It's like you can,
I believe I did. Yeah,
it's like little pieces of work, and someone, like some anonymous person, can come on and take it on and like give you what you needed, and you pay them for it. Something like that too could be just as good, I think, where maybe it's not no code, but it's code that you don't have to write, or you don't have to create relationships to do it. You just like, it's just a transaction,
Yeah, I mean, the piece of code, here you go. Whoever can build it, great. Yeah, it's true.
Exactly.
I think eventually we'll see something like that.
Yeah,
I think you will see some. I've used some contractors before, but there was always that relationship.
Yeah,
not you specifically or Brandon. Like I'm talking about, like you post, for example, whatever you want to build. There are a lot of sites where you can just go post whatever you want to build, and people actually will bid on that to see who's going to build it the cheapest,
Yeah.
But you always have the
That's
relationship.
how a lot of work happens in contracting, right? So
A lot, yeah, it's true. Like a lot of it, like this happened. But at the enterprise level, is different. It's a different ball game. You cannot like have an enterprise go put a project out there. It's like, hey, who can build this for me? And you have people build it on it. You know.
Yeah. You need to understand what's going on inside of that, because unfortunately there's a lot of like security vectors that could get exposed if you if you went on Fiverr to build
it is
that.
It is a lot, and automatically, like if you do contracting for an enterprise, it's not for a month or two. It goes literally for years.
Yeah.
You know, because there is so much that needs to be done, and at the enterprise level, things move slow. It's not uncommon to have a PR open for weeks at a time. Because people to review, like you have to contact different people to review it. They don't have time for it. It's just things move slow at the enterprise level, and it's very tricky for a company that's really successful and growing. It's sometimes they become way too big to stay lean. Like getting big is good, but like staying lean is key to making progress. I've seen a lot of applications, a lot of successful companies out there that I use their application on a daily basis, and I've been using their applications for the last 10 years. The UI has never changed, ever.
Can you give us an example of
like
a good one?
Like Bank of America as an example. I'm a customer of Bank of America. When I log in, the UI has been the same for the last decade because they're way too big. I'm sure they might have some migration plan going on.
Yeah.
But maybe they're still in the discussion phase, and maybe they've been in the discussion phase for years. You know, I'm just speculating here, but like I haven't seen any movement on it. You know, no drastic changes. Colors still remain the same. The design still remain the same. The experience still remain the same. The bugs, I've seen some bugs still there. Like they haven't changed, and it's becoming too big. Sometimes it's not a good thing. You know. It will negatively impact your progress and your application. You have to stay in. You definitely have to stay in. I've seen a lot of companies, non-tech companies, if they become too big, what they do, they split and sell some of their stuff. They sell some of their product just to remain lean, just so they can keep moving fast. But you cannot do that with software. You know, you cannot sell cut off some of your software and keep only some. It's different. It's really different.
I was going to talk a little bit about COVID. With you sniffling, it's almost like, do we want to jinx it?
COVID?
Yeah, no, maybe. So I actually,
no, not you. It's like you said, you got COVID because of your sneezing. All right, congrats, man.
I just got my wife found an open appointment, so I just got mine today. But I'm curious.
First shot.
First shot. Yeah.
Which
so I scheduled my second one, Moderna.
Moderna, okay.
I was hoping for Sputnik. I've yet to hear there's some odd stuff on the internet about people getting the Sputnik one, the Russian one. But I wanted to be that guinea pig, but now I got the Moderna. So yeah,
I think Sputnik is literally just vodka. Just shot and he's like, here you go. In your bloodstreams. Like you're good.
Yeah, sounds good to me. A shot of vodka, I'll take it.
Alcohol kills everything, right?
There you go.
There you go. You're probably gonna lose your arm, but you won't have COVID.
Who needs arms when you can go outside without a mask? Am I right?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, for me, I have my second shot on April 23rd.
Okay.
For Pfizer.
Yeah. My wife and I were just looking at the numbers. It seems really cool to see us kind of coming out of this. If you look at both number of cases and deaths, we're on a very downward trajectory, and it's very, very encouraging to see how that coincides with the availability of a vaccine.
So. Yeah, hey, I mean, under the good leadership, things are moving faster. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's I think the goal was 100 million vaccinated adults in the first 100 days of this new administration. Now they're shooting for 200 million, double of that.
That's awesome.
In the first 100 days, which is very impressive.
Yeah. I think that's going to be huge to how this administration is remembered too. It's a pretty easy task, to be honest. Just make sure everyone who wants a vaccine gets it, and history will smile at you. You know.
I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of work to get to that level where everybody can have it.
Oh yeah.
And I really applaud this administration for doing what they can to get people vaccinated. It's been really fascinating to see them at work. We are April. We are like, this administration has been around for what, like 3 months?
Yep.
And what they have achieved already is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think so. The biggest thing they've achieved for me is just not feeling a pressure to doom scroll on a daily basis.
Same. I was looking at the news on a daily basis, like with the previous administration. Right now, like I listen to NPR, I guess, every morning, and that's it for me. Like I know I'm covered. Like nothing crazy is gonna happen between 8 a.m. and noon. Like I know that for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it's different. It's definitely different.
Yeah. Well, so how and again, interrupt me if we're running out on time. But how did COVID like change like life for you or work for you? Maybe that's a better question.
I was pleasantly surprised. I remember in March of last year.
Yeah.
The current organization I work for, they said everybody gonna work from home.
Yeah.
But we didn't know for how long.
Yeah.
And we made the transition from being in office to working from home within 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
I'm talking about thousands of people.
Yeah, so I wasn't there. Our baby was born right there while this all was happening. Wow. So I was out on paternity leave. But I remember like coming back, it was like coming into a zombie apocalypse in terms of like work. Like everything had changed.
But our organization was really ready for it because from no VPN issues, nothing.
Mm.
The network engineers we have did a phenomenal job. I think they were already ready for it. And I think that a lot of people became more productive in COVID than they were at the office because there is no time commuting. All that small talk is non-existent, right? At the office, you're always somebody go grab coffee with people, which I personally like, right?
Yeah,
you get to know people. But that's gone as well. No commuting, and the danger of working from home is you don't have a separation between personal life, and work.
Yeah.
If you don't make a clear distinction between the two, you literally end up working the entire day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fell victim for that. Like I was a victim of it, where I'm working. If I'm hungry, I just go to the kitchen, grab something, and go back to my desk.
Yep.
What was stopping me is I have to go pick up my son from daycare. When daycares were open at the time. But that's it. Like literally, that was it, and it became exhausting. You're productive, but it's not really healthy productive. You have to find a good balance. So COVID was interesting. I think that COVID. Of course, I'm not gonna say I'm glad it happened. Like a lot of people lost their lives, and I feel really sorry, that this had to happen. But we, as a human race, we got to do something we never did before, to see if we can communicate, just not actually physically, because communication, when you communicate by email or writing, that's like 10-15% of communications goes through, right? When you pick up the phone and call somebody, it's about 20 to 30%. But when you interact with somebody, right, face to face, you have all that physical language, the gestures. That's actually about 70% of the communication. Like 70%, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that when COVID happens, I'm glad we have video conferencing. So at least that physical language, the gestures and all this, I'm not gone. You can still see them.
Being able to see someone's face and their reaction without lag, I think is huge for conversation.
Yeah. I don't think that's.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say that I don't think we would have been successful if COVID happened in 2009. I don't think that we will be as successful, because we will not have a good way of communicating. You will not have that video conferencing as easy as it is right now, because 2008, 2009, I don't think we had the infrastructure we have right now.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe you will have what's this old video conferencing tool?
Skype, right?
Skype, right?
this
we
damn
had
Skype for
Skype.
Business was like a special kind of hell.
Yeah, exactly, right? It wasn't as good as Zoom, for example, as it is now.
Yeah.
And maybe you would have just like meetings will be just the regular phone meetings. But in phone meetings, you'll just have like 30% of the communication going through.
Yeah.
The other 70% is not going through.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we would not be as you will feel the impact. Right now, when we did not really feel the impact transitioning from office to working from home, because it wasn't as bad. You know, it was actually good to be home, to be with your family, spend more time with your family. The challenging part, I believe, is for people who have kids.
Yeah,
that's a whole different story because school's closed. You have to cater for them, and it was challenging. I had a toddler. I remember where we took him from daycare in March, and he stayed with us for months. And he's a toddler. He's literally touching everything, curious about everything. I'm working with my laptop. I'm covering my laptop with my shoulder sometimes, like, you know. So that was me coding and working, like literally on meetings like this, and that was my daily routine. But I believe for the majority of the people who maybe have their kids are grown, they're, you know, they don't have to care actually for toddlers or for young kids. I think it was a good thing to be working from home because you have all this time. You can actually take care of your family and take care of yourself. It was interesting.
So for our situation, so we have 6 kids, including Sadie, who was born, you know, at the start of all this. Thankfully, my wife doesn't work at the moment, so we kind of had the someone to deal with all these crazy kids we got running around. But like, my job is easily the easier job out of the two, especially with all those considerations going on.
That is very true. My wife works, and she is as busy as I am, like on meetings all day. And I remember, like, she's sitting in the dining room, I sit in the living room, and my toddler like is between us. He's just crazy mayhem, like this. Like at that time, we just give up. Like we don't care about the house. He can destroy whatever he wants as long as it's not like we just like, no, that's fine. I clean it later. That was the mentality.
Yeah.
But now I think things are getting better. Daycares are open now. We took him back to daycare, and
awesome.
and you're getting more time to do things, to more times for your hobby, cook a little bit, you know, and work is if anything, I think if it wasn't for COVID, if we were stayed in office with our current project, I don't think we would have reached that milestone of fully upgrading to Angular. Maybe that will be done a few months from now.
Yeah.
Because like all the time of commuting, right? That small talk, the meetings. Like I remember, if you want to meet, you have to go book a conference room every time. You have to book a conference room. They're booked. You have to find somewhere else where you can just crash so you can have a one-on-one discussion with somebody. That takes time.
Yeah, it does.
None of that, none of those are. We don't need any of that right now, working from home. And I really hope that that we stay like this, that we have like a hybrid model.
Yeah.
Where if you can go back to the office maybe once a week just to see your family, but the other 4 times a week you're working from home. You're working from home. And I saw I think a poll that was done a couple of days ago. I don't recall the source, but they've interviewed a lot of people, and 45% of those people, they say I'd rather quit than go back to the office.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. Yeah. So me and my brother own a real estate business that we do on the side, and we've been very interested in this because we're like, how are the paths of progress going to change? How can we maybe jump on that to figure out like this is shown, if nothing else, this is very possible. It may even be beneficial. How's that going to change the way people live? Like the way people like spread out. I think there's going to be a lot of people moving out to like, I don't know, like Montana or places that are cheap, but like have everything you need, and you know, why live in the cities?
I think there is a lot of need for those external pods from your house. Like if you have a house and backyard, I think there's this Swiss company that builds actually small pods that are offices.
Wow.
So they literally ship it to you. You put it in your backyard.
Do you know the name of this place?
I'll send you the name.
Okay. I'll make sure I put it in the links for anyone watching later. That's
really cool. You have actually a small pod, and it's all mirrors, right? And literally what it has like a desk like in the middle. It's an office, literally that's what it is. But what you do when you go to the office, you live in your house, go into your backyard to your pod. It has AC, it has everything. It has actually a small kind of like excluded conference room for if you want to have a conference room. It's really well done. And they're doing really well. I think that you cannot even buy it right now. Like there is a backlog of months. Here's an idea for you. If you want to do something like this in the US, that'd be really cool. Because I know a lot of people they need that. They need that extra space in their home. People who cannot move. Especially people who have backyards and have space.
Yeah. Well, we've had this conversation many times. I'm in our walk-in closet that we're like slowly converting into an office just to have, like you were talking about, that separated space.
Yeah.
But having an actual other building out in the yard, like what is it called, like a mother-in-law house, or even just a little pot, that would be perfect. Like, let me go to work.
I'm at work, and there is like when people know you're there, you're at work.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, hey, I'm at work. Like I'm clocked in right now. I cannot just go and do something in the house. And I've seen there is a lot of. It's amazing, man. Humans are phenomenal. Like even within COVID, there is a lot of cool technology, came out with communicating or anything can think of. And I'm also fascinated by people that found a way of still having fun just by video conferencing, like workouts. And I believe that's in March when all this started. A group of us from the current organization that I work for, we started organizing daily workouts where we hop in on Zoom and we have like a workout together, like for a good hour. It's just impressive, like things we would have never done before.
Yeah.
Right. Never done before. What's the name of that bike? Peloton, I believe.
Peloton, yeah. I think they've been doing really well since COVID started.
Yeah, they've been doing extremely well. So you have all those companies that have an application that will cater for a niche market like this. They will do very, very well. But the sad part is that because of technology, we're really moving away from each other. We're becoming more and more like, separated and secluded. And this is actually against human nature. People are social people. They love to get together. But it's interesting. I mean, we'll see what's going to happen in the near future,
Yeah. It'll be very interesting. I totally agree too. Like in some ways, I love being at work. For me, especially with having all the kids at home, like I love my kids very much so. But sometimes it's nice to just have like the adult relationships and like true adult friendships where you see them. And like I feel like we know each other pretty well. I feel like just having from work the months we have and like seeing each other every day on Zoom and whatnot. But there's something that's still lacking about just like, I don't know, about if we had actually been working in the same physical location. I feel like we would have known each other a little bit more. Like we'd have
had lunches together, we'd have coffee together, I don't know if you have ever had a hookah. If you haven't, I will take you have a hookah as an example.
I had it in college like once, but I'd be very interested to try it again.
Yeah, I mean, we do it a lot. It's a culture thing.
Yeah,
that's what's missing. I think that's we know each other very, very well, but it's always been about work. Like like here and there, we'll talk about personal life, but we've never got to meet up, jump on a Zoom like we're doing right now, and say, "Hey, let's talk something about anything except for work." Like that's
well, here I am, and I'm just wanting to talk about work still.
No, I'm just to answer this question, like. I think that's in our current work situation. This is for every single company. Every discussion you had was about work. You cannot block somebody's time to say, "Hey, I just want to see how you're doing."
Yeah.
If it's not your direct reports, with my direct reports, I get to do that because we have those once a week meetings called 10-10s, 10 minutes for you, 10 minutes for me. Nothing is off the table.
That's what that means.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it means. 10 minutes for you and 10 minutes for me.
Gotcha.
Literally. And you can talk about anything and everything. Sometimes when there is no agenda, you just talk about personal life. You get to know the person, and it's a really healthy way of getting to know the people in your team. And personally, if I have to cancel a meeting, I will never cancel those 10 minutes. I try the best I can to not cancel those 10 minutes, because I'd rather go there and get to know the people I work with than go into an architecture meeting. I would postpone my architecture meeting than canceling a 10 minutes, because those are really, really important to me. I don't get a lot of those on a weekly basis, like to get to know. That's an opportunity to get to know the person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think this is what's missing, like taking people out for coffee, for lunch, for dinner, just have a walk with people. Sometimes you just take a walk around the building, talk about ideas,
Yeah, and like the humans have evolved very much to like be reliant on sort of these social interactions, and like part of the way I think part of the way we work together as a team is by forming these kinds of bonds you're talking about. There's some sense of responsibility there then that I don't know. It feels like it could be a little more lacking now that we're missing some of that.
I think
I don't know. I'd be very interested to see too, like turnover rates following this year. See if like there's probably all kinds of reasons for it. Like some people want to be remote now, and maybe it's not all places offer that. But also just to see, well, have the relationships been strained? A big thing through your story was like the relationships you've had and kept like through your 20 years in here. That's incredible to see.
I mean, I have actually. Even at work, like I have a Slack channel, a private Slack channel outside the organization. Whoever I no longer work with, I make sure I add them there.
Yeah, I've got the same just private Slack thing going on.
Yeah, just I can have like keep those, and I have all of them in one group, so they get to know each other. They bounce idea against each other, and it's nice. Like getting to know people is fascinating. Because each person has its own story, has its own background, their own idea. It's just fascinating to me to meet a person and get to know what they're all about, and that's what's missing right now, unfortunately. But even the way like how I run my team and I run my stand-ups and my meetings, I'm not really like strict on things. If people wanna joke about stuff, it's completely fine by me. It just keeps a healthy mentality. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to me getting to know people. And this country, like, people are from all walk of life, because you have immigrants from all over the world that come here. And it's just mind-blowing to work with my team. Like, you are part of the team. The background of those people. We had somebody from South Korea, right? Somebody from Nepal, myself from Morocco, you and Brandon, and a couple of other engineers like from the US. It's just wow! It's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
To sit down and you have like a mini UN. You literally have a mini UN in a meeting.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, in tech in general, like I mentioned the NG workers, but like open source, it's so cool to see, man. Like you were talking about all the talent pools and in parts of Africa and stuff. It's so cool to see that happening just organically, and to see like there's so much that I think tech has to offer, just because of like DHH, the guy behind like Boot Camp or Base Camp, and what's he doing now? He's doing Hey, the email thing.
Yeah.
That's what it's called? I don't know. Forgive me if I gave the wrong name. But like he had this talk about like open source being like the evolution of the commons. Like this is a commons that by taking from it, you actually help it instead of deplete it, which is so cool to see. And if there's something that gives me hope about the future of our species and this planet, is that like
open source.
Open source is a huge thing, but also just like the bridges that tech is building, just from a function of having to get work done together.
I mean, open source is it shows you that there is faith in humanity. When they go open source, literally that's what that is. It's a group of people coming together, all like everyone agrees on the same idea and doing their best they can to support it.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
And
Where
it's
that's
cool
going
to
to go.
see like the support structures kind of come up with like Open Collective and some of these places where they can actually get some funding. But
Yeah.
for the most part, a lot of these maintainers are doing it completely out of their own pocket or their own time.
And this is for passion. Like passion is big. This is just because they're passionate about the subject, and they want to contribute. They
Yeah,
want to contribute as much as they can because they use it, and they see there is a need for whatever idea they are contributing to. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful to see, and I can't wait to have take this open source like to the next level. Right now we're doing it just on engineering, right, on software. I would love to take this open source and apply it to other domains as well.
hmm.
It would be fascinating. Imagine if we do that to, I don't know, like restaurants as an example, like food. Let's say, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna go. We do some of it right now, right? Like in charity, right? But imagine like you have on a daily basis, you have like an entire restaurant fully run by open source style.
Oh,
Imagine
that's
that. You
cool.
know what I mean? You
Yeah,
have hundreds of people who are willing to go and contribute. But the whole thing at the restaurants is just going to feed the needy,
yeah,
feed people like the homeless, feed people who are really in need. As an example, it's just like an example.
yeah.
That would be phenomenal. That would be
It's
literally
really cool.
phenomenal. Yeah, imagine like a restaurant you walk in, it's just literally people who are really in need, who are sitting on those tables, like homeless as an example, who are sitting on those tables. And the entire thing is run by like an open source model.
Yeah.
We have some of that, but it's not as to the level of an entire restaurant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
When you brought that up, where my mind was going is you talk about some sort of open restaurant where like any chef could come in and like sell their food, just use the kitchen. Like there's some protocol established there,
yeah,
same way we have in our world.
that
And
can be
like,
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
the,
same thing.
yeah,
Literally the exact same thing. There are different applications to this.
mm,
Just in in one domain, if you apply open source, the sky is the limit. You can twist it as many ways as you want. The sky is really the limit. But I think that open source, the idea of it, is really powerful. And I really can't wait to see it moving, like going from software and getting applied somewhere else.
yeah.
I really
That's,
can't wait to see that.
I 100% agree. I think that's, honestly, Yusuf, until you mentioned it, I had not gone that way. I was like, this is like something unique to our world that we can help people with. But I think you're 100% correct. I think it's very easy to take the same principles. If we could put some effort into figuring that out, let's figure out how we can take these same principles and make it so, like the whole thing is about flipping the incentives. Like we
Yeah,
go back in time, like if a farmer saw a field that was kind of open to everyone, they're like, I'm going to let my cows go in there and like eat it all up, and they'll ruin it for everyone else. And forget them. I need to feed my cows. Uh,
that's true.
but if we can just align those incentives so that, I don't know,
Yeah,
by using that space or those resources, we're actually increasing
yeah.
the everything for everyone else too. I don't think there's necessarily anything barring other domains from kind of going into that. I think ours lends itself very well to
Yeah,
that, just because of the nature of like knowledge work and digital assets. But
yeah. I mean, open source is still in its infancy too. It's a really
oh yeah,
young concept. Even Microsoft, if you remember, a few years ago, they were completely against it,
yep,
right? Before their current CEO. But once their current CEO, came on board, it's like, no, no, no. We need to embrace open source. And look where they at.
hmm,
Look where Microsoft is right now.
yeah.
They have amazing
Very
products.
cool to see how they turned around too. Like they
Yeah.
were, I was
Oh,
like, I don't want anything Microsoft, and now
remember
it's
that?
like, yeah, and now it's like VS Code. It's like a
Yeah,
love letter to developers,
yeah.
100%, in a way
So
that before it was like,
TypeScript,
yeah,
they did phenomenal in the
yeah.
last few years, under the current CEO. And I truly believe,
GitHub is a big one too. Like they own GitHub now, and they're
yeah,
they're doing a great job from everything I can see. I
yeah.
think
I think
there's some stuff
LinkedIn,
about like ICE going on with
yeah.
GitHub. I'm not very
I,
familiar with
I
that.
think the current CEO did a really good job in turning things around. He
Yeah.
really embraced open source, and he also changed, I think, also performance reviews in the company.
Mm.
He completely changed that. I had some friends who worked at Microsoft, and they used to tell me it's a really cutthroat mentality.
Yeah.
Like it was so competitive because by the end of the year, some engineer is going to get thrown under the bus. That's how it was. And a lot of people left Microsoft because of this. But surprisingly, once their new CEO came on board, embraced open source, and like he removed that rating system, the old rating system they had, some of those engineers went back to Microsoft. Talented engineers went back to Microsoft.
That's impressive.
Sean Larkin, I respect that guy. I love that guy. He's at Microsoft right now, right? I believe he's a product manager, and he's big in the open source community, right? In Webpack, and he's just been phenomenal seeing this, seeing how Microsoft has turned around, you know. And I think open source played a big role there. It played a big role once they embraced it.
For the longest time, it was you hear, what was it, the cathedral versus the bazaar, and Microsoft was the cathedral, and like you have these like sort of weird Linux stuff that no one understood at the time was the bazaar, and that it's so crazy to see like how that little, it's like the rebels in StarCraft, right? There's no way they should have won, but somehow they did, and they, to the point where they converted the Microsoft into their ranks. It's a very cool story.
It's really impressive. I mean, I have a big faith in open source. I believe we're gonna see a lot of domains embrace it because it works. Like in software, it works, and I really believe it's gonna work in other domains as well.
Yeah,
if we try to apply it under the right, under the right standards, under the rights, and also under the right people. I think in software right now we have it down to a science because we've tried different strategies and we have one now that works. That's most of the kids have ones like enterprises embrace as well. But yeah, applying it somewhere else would be really cool to see.
Yeah, well, I think we're definitely leading the pack for sure. We may be the only people even in the race at the moment, but I still feel like there's a long way for us to go potentially in terms of like just getting better infrastructure in place for these places. It's very encouraging to see the progress we've made so far. But I'm very hopeful for seeing more things arise around it. Just support coming in, like financial and otherwise, for these kinds of projects that. Like you've seen the cartoons where it's like a modern day tech stack, and then it's like shows this like one little like domino under this massive building. It's like some open source projects some person has been like thanklessly maintaining for years in their basement. It's like,
I remember I forgot which one. I think that there was an incident where he decided to purge it from GitHub, and when he purged it GitHub, when people want to install it, npm install like in the package adjacent. That no
Are you
longer.
thinking Lerna? I remember Lerna took itself off the registry for a bit.
It wasn't Lerna. It was something. Yeah, it was a small date library. I'm talking about 12 lines of code.
Okay,
it's not something too crazy, but almost every single date library that we use, like Moment.js, they use it, they install it on their own. So when that guy who maintains it, like you said, in his basement, it's a small one. He removed it from npm. It broke applications across the globe.
Yeah,
like that's how crazy. Talking about that small domino, but now like npm have strict rules on that. They have strict rules what you can purge, what you cannot purge. They have a caching system, I believe, as well. If you remove something, it will still be available, although if you remove it. But before that, literally, like that small domino that exists under the building existed. You can literally break applications across the world by the least 12 lines of code.
Yeah. For larger organizations, hopefully they had like their own Nexus or something, like creating their copy of that in their registry so they can still get it. But like, for anyone out there, like in the open source ecosystem, like that one thing, they probably don't have a Nexus. Like they probably didn't have their own registry. They're dependent on the infrastructure that's available, and that goes down.
Yeah, if you have a startup, you don't have an Artifactory, you don't have a Nexus. You get directly from public, right? And you'll be hit. You'll definitely be hit. But big enterprises, they will not as impacted, like you said. They have their own Artifactory or Nexus, but a lot of other companies got a big hit.
Yeah.
Like, I know some big enterprises they don't even have like a caching infrastructure like Nexus. You know, they don't have that. They fit directly from public. But then once this happened, they have now reason to go and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, big enterprises are always like this. They will not be proactive on things, but they will wait until a problem actually happens. Then they fix it and puts the right infrastructure around it. It's always has been the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, my friend.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, Youssef, we've been going for almost 2 hours now, man.
Yeah, I think it's a good stop.
Yeah, this has been great. I wish we could like wrap this up by headed out to the hookah bar or something like that. That would be really cool.
That would have been cool. That would have been really cool.
Dude, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experiences with everyone in the audience here. It's been really cool to hear. Like I always love hearing about people who've been around in the business like as long as you have, just to hear their story, to understand it. I'm trying to backfill a lot of this history so I can understand, you know, why are things the way they are and where are we going from here? I think that's a very important thing to have. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to enlighten us. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. And you know, if there is anything I can help with or some other stuff you would like to talk about, I'm always here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think we're going to have you back again sometime soon. So
sure.
yeah,
I would love to.
That would be awesome.
All right. Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, everyone. Catch y'all later.
All right. Take care, guys.